Christophe's Story, Chapter 5. The story is told again. A few days later, Miss Finch said to Christophe, "Would you like more people to hear your story?" He nodded eagerly. How would you feel about telling it to the whole school? He imagined standing at the end of the hall with all the big children looking at him. That wasn't the same as standing in front of the class. A horrible sick feeling got into his stomach. There was no way he could do that. "I couldn't," he said. "I'm not surprised," said Miss Finch. "But you'd like them to hear it, wouldn't you?" "Yes, there is a way we could make that happen. I could read it to them. But to do that, I'd have to write down the tape recording that I made when you told the class. And I know what you think about that." "Write it down?" Christophe flinched. Barbie would say, "No, don't do it." "I can't use the tape recording itself. There are too many background noises." "The only way is to write it down," said Miss Finch. "It's up to you, Christophe. If you don't want me to, I won't do it." Christophe stood there, trying to think it through. If he said no, none of the big children would get to hear the story, or the rest of the teachers, and he wanted to tell them. He wanted them to know what had happened. But what would Barbie say? And what would happen to the pictures? "Talk to your parents," said Miss Finch. "No need to decide now." "Papa," Christophe said, "Miss Finch wants to write down my story so she can read it to the big children." "Does she?" "But Barbie said stories shouldn't be written down." "Yes." "Papa, what shall I tell Miss Finch?" "You want me to tell you what's right?" "Yes, Papa." Christophe, Miss Mon Petite, I can't tell you what to do. You're the storyteller now. You've got to speak with your mouth. If your heart tells you no, don't do it. But if your heart tells you yes, then that's what you should do." Christophe went to bed. He couldn't get to sleep. What was he going to say to Miss Finch? If only Barbie would tell him what to do. But he would never see Barbie again. He felt a terrible pain in his heart. It was quite different from the pain that he had felt when he got shot. He felt as if he was bursting apart. Barbie had gone, and so had Matthew. Then the tears came. They streamed out of his eyes and poured down his face. He buried his face in his pillow and pulled his duvet over his head. He didn't want anyone to hear him crying. Little by little the pain went away. His tears dried up and his head grew cool. He knew what he had to do. He must tell Miss Finch to write his story down. Barbie would say that the more people who heard it, the better. Maybe the pictures would still be there. Then Christophe fell asleep. A couple of weeks later, all the children were in assembly. Mamma and Papa came to the school and sat by Mrs. Crowther, the head teacher. Mamma spread over the edges of her chair. She was getting very big now. Christophe didn't sit by them. He had chosen to sit by Greg and Pete. Miss Finch said, "I'm going to tell you a story about a boy who used to live in a place called Rwanda in Africa. He is now an asylum seeker in England, and he goes to this school. This is his story in his own words." Then she read Christophe's story. Everyone sat still. Sometimes small gasps were heard when the story got scary. When Miss Finch had finished, Christophe thought the clapping would never come to an end. He felt shy and strange, but at the same time he felt good. And he knew that the pictures hadn't gone away. They were still there, shining into the hearts and minds of the children. Papa stood up and said, "I am very happy. My son is very clever. Thank you for helping him." Mamma didn't say anything. He saw that her eyes were very bright. From time to time she wiped them with a handkerchief. "Was that okay?" Miss Finch asked Christophe when it was all over. "Yes," he said, "but it's better when I tell it myself." "That's right," said Miss Finch, "but how many children can you tell? And what about the ones who don't go to school? Why don't we see if we can make your story into a book with lots and lots of copies so that everyone can read it, even if they live in another country?" And that's exactly what happened. By the time the book was published, Christophe's little sister had been born. Christophe sat holding her hand while Mamma gave her milk. Mamma's face shone. All the sadness had gone. She said, "Now you've got someone else to listen to your story." Kabuza means to help set you free. It sounds good, but it isn't. The men who used it were bullies who wanted others to do as they say. They rubbed white chalk on their faces and they dressed in banana leaves to make themselves look scary. Then they burst into your house waving spears and big knives. They pretended that someone else was bullying you and they acted as if they'd come to set you free. You knew that if you didn't go with them, you would be in trouble. And that's the ending to the story of Christophe. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you could write a story of your own and email it to your class teacher. Thank you and bye.